some individuals will be like, how come my tests are, always, my pH is acidic? We always say it's best to increase your vegetarian food intake, and also to maybe watch out for coffee.
You're tuned in to the Dr. Kinney Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Erin Kinney, a naturopathic doctor and speaker dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of your body and guiding you back into balance. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Kinney Show. This week, I'm joined by Melisa, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist who works for this really cool new company called Vivu. She's their nutrition and wellness expert. And Vivu is a urine test that allows you to kind of gain some more insight on what your nutrition status is. It's super cool. I just tried it out this morning, and we're going to talk about my results because I have a whole bunch of questions about it. But Melisa, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm so excited to have you here and learn more about this really cool at-home testing kit. It's so awesome.
Oh, thank you, Doctor. It's a pleasure to be here and speak about this with you here today. I'm very, very excited as well.
Yeah. So I love when I have on the show, I love having my guests share a little bit of their background. So if you want to share kind of your story so we can kind of learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. Awesome. So I'm very passionate about health and nutrition. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I'm a certified dietitian nutritionist within the state of New York, meaning I accept all major insurances in my own private practice. I'm very passionate about nutrition. I started studying nutrition kind of towards the end of my undergraduate degree. I was mainly focused on psychology, neuroscience, and I was majoring in those fields. Then when I was doing research on children with behavioral management disorders, I realized that they all had a lot in common with a lot of sugar in their diet, and the sugar was coming from processed food, sugar sweetened beverages, candy, and I realized that there were a lot of dyes, et cetera. It made me really passionate about really what is in the food and how it affects our body and our lifestyles. So I pursued a graduate degree in nutrition, Master's of Science, and now I'm doing my PhD actually. And I'm currently researching on how mood and kind of our neural structure can be affected by what we eat. So cool. I'm really trying to pinpoint on those key factors that can really help increase our happiness.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. So, and how did you get involved with Vivu? How did you get involved with them?
Sure. So I've always been interested in holistic and integrative approaches to health and wellness. And when I was finding different ways to kind of monitor my own health, like if I'm sure everyone has heard about biohacking. There's, for example, smartwatches you can wear, or there's like the ring when you sleep. There's different kind of
devices and things. We could use to hack our health. Yeah,
exactly. And I was always interested in how we can apply these on a daily basis to really monitor our health. A lot of my clients will try and increase their macronutrients ratios. For example, if they're athletes, they'll be monitoring their carbs and their proteins on a daily basis through food logging apps or through, using me. But I really wanted to get more in detail on micronutrients and our vitamins and minerals. And when I realized that there was the opportunity to test your body's results every day in the comfort of your own home, I got really excited. So I decided to actually work with the company. I'm very passionate because the company is based on the principles that they want everyone to connect with their own body by getting really in touch with how their body is feeling on a daily basis in response to how they're eating, how they're sleeping, how they're, even feeling throughout the day.
Yeah, it's super cool. So like I said, I tried it this morning. They're urine strips, right? So it was a funny little, it looked like a little key, and it had all these different, so she's going to show you. And then there's an app you download. And so you pee on the stick, and then you scan the colors of so I'm assuming it just is, it's like a regular urinalysis, but it's testing for a bunch of different things.
It's super, super easy. And I think that's also why I really fell in love with
so easy.
Just the product, Dr. Erin, because if you think about it, when we go and get a blood test, you have to make an appointment with the hospital.
It's
forever.
A whole thing. And if you're scared of needles, it's a whole other thing. I mean, I run really extensive blood work, and I'm grateful to do that, but it takes a while to get the results back. And then you have the anxiety waiting for the results. And granted, we can't get all the information we need from one urine dipstick, but it was so easy, and it took 90 seconds. So if you're on the stick, and then 90 seconds later.
I mean, cool. we always encourage everyone to do multiple types of tests to monitor their wellness. So blood tests are great, like you were saying, that you offer them to your clients. And that really can look at things that are really deep, like the minerals in your bones, like iron, etc. But having this in the comfort of your own home, like you said, just, for our listeners, you simply open a strip, you urinate on the strip for, up to like 5 to 10 seconds. And then you wait for a minute and a half. If you're like me and you like to multitask, that's when I go and brush my teeth really quick. And then you come back and you scan it on your phone through the app, and it will tell you what your parameters are like. And right now we're able to offer 9 parameters, which is a really, really big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool. Like it told me my ketones, my protein in my urine, the alkaline or the pH of my urine, gives you status on hydration, calcium, magnesium. And I'm going to ask you questions about, because some of mine are off and I'm curious. It'll give you an oxidative stress marker, sodium, and vitamin C. So that's really cool data. I think even just in the ability to know if you're staying well hydrated, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think, it said my water was 10 out of 10, my sodium was 10 out of 10. So that to me says, oh, hey, like I did a good job hydrating yesterday and today. Like when I went this morning, was pretty good. My calcium and my magnesium were a little bit high. So I was going to ask you about what that means in the urine.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that so usually calcium, magnesium does go hand in hand, not always, but most usually. And that's just because of the way the minerals are, secreted and absorbed in our body. So, if your magnesium, you said it was a little bit high. Is that what you were saying?
My magnesium was an 8 out of 10 and my calcium was an 8 out of 10, which said was a little high.
So just for our listeners, of course, Dr. And all of this in you're a naturopathic doctor. So I'm explaining this more for our listeners. I know know all this in total detail, but so just for the difference with, for our listeners, a urine test versus a blood test is our blood test is showing what's in our body, except for, blood glucose and other circulating measures. But the urine test is showing what we're excreting.
Yep.
So if we're excreting high amounts of magnesium, that means that we have more than sufficient amounts of magnesium in our body. And, that's why I really love these tests, is because I was actually like over supplementing with magnesium because I've always been an athlete. And as a dietitian, it's always been marketed. So I'm like, I need to take magnesium to balance my stress. And then I realized that on some days I didn't need it as much. And I was then evaluating my diet and realized I got it through natural sources. So it may be, Dr. Erin, that maybe that day.
Yeah. I took a high dose of magnesium the night before. So it's actually, that makes perfect sense. What I'm looking now, you can click on the markers and it'll actually show you what the optimal levels are. And it looks like the optimal levels are 0.25 to 0.56. And I was at 6. So I was slightly elevated. So
okay, that's
really. I think I'm going to try tonight. I'm going to lower my dose of magnesium and see what happens tomorrow. I mean, this is such a cool tool for anyone listening. If you're like, "Ooh, I don't know how much to take." I mean, and often I'm like thinking through this right now. Like I usually dose magnesium to bowel tolerance. So like if you take it and your bowels stay normal, that's probably what you need. If you take a little too much, your bowels will be a little bit looser. But this is so great to test the urine as well, because we might be able to get like an even tighter range on what your body's needs are, because maybe it's not affecting your bowels, but maybe you're excreting a little more through the urine.
Yeah. I think that's what's so cool about it, because it's like you were saying, hydration. I always was very, 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 very careful about hydration, just because of how, all of our bodily processes are dependent on it. And I was always working in beauty and skin health. And I realized, and I would always touch my skin or my lips. And then once I was using the app and I was like, how am I always dehydrated? I realized that I was drinking a lot of green tea because I've been, I had been really working, like overworking hours, and caffeine is a dehydrator. So as just for our listeners, whenever we're drinking, caffeine, because it works as a diuretic, usually for your cup of caffeine, you usually excrete a similar amount of liquid. And a lot of us, what happens is we're drinking tea or coffee and we're like, I'm hydrating, but actually, you would have to drink. Yeah, you're dehydrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great app to really kind of monitor and really fine tune those small details. So like you said, your magnesium, you're supplementing, you're obviously extremely healthy, but just those small details are really cool. It's showing. And then you said for your calcium, you said that was also high.
Same thing was a little bit high. So would that be a similar thing? And maybe I'm just supplementing a little bit too much calcium.
Yeah. I mean, it depends if it's through your diet, if you're having a lot of dairy or a lot of leafy greens, or if you're supplementing. But usually what we have seen from our personal experiences that when results are high, above high for instance, magnesium or calcium or vitamin C, it might be due to supplements, because our body is really good at regulating the amount through food, through natural cravings, or just natural like absorption methods. So I think that's great.
Yeah, it's going to excrete out what it doesn't need. But what's interesting like with the urine is, obviously it's good that our body's getting it out, but you don't want your urine pH to change too much, because that can affect the urethra, that can affect the bladder. Like there could be some other. So if you're someone, I'm wondering how this must be great for people with like cystitis or urinary tract infections. So we can see, like real time, what's your urine pH looking like?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think so many of us are unaware of how important pH is.
Yes.
And, we're always marketed. Like I was just drinking water from a plastic bottle. I try not to drink from plastic, but today was one of those days. Whoop you. And,
it happens.
when I was in Whole Foods, I was like, wow, there are so many different types of alkaline water. Like there was probably like 5 different types. And I was like, I'm sure consumers, when they look at this, they're like, this must be the better water. This must be it's so confusing. So I think even these apps, like just kind of relearning what pH is, it can be quite confusing. And then, obviously eating a more plant-based diet, having more naturally alkaline food. So just for our listeners, when we're eating something sour or acidic, like a green apple, it has malic acid, it has all these different acidic components. And then when we put this in our mouth and we digest it with our amylase and it goes down, our body is actually secreting buffers. And these buffers work to neutralize, to bring its pH back to neutralize our body's pH back to 7.3, 7.35, 7.4, depends on the individual. Yeah. So we're secreting alkaline substances. So some individuals will be like, how come my tests are always, my pH is acidic? We always say it's best to increase your vegetarian food intake, and also to maybe like watch out for coffee, because coffee can also, in a high amount, coffee and tea, but coffee more because it's more strong in that way, work to make your pH more acidic. And then for women's health, you mentioned that. I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I think most women's health issues such as fertility or even UTIs or cystitis or yeast infections, these are all really only been publicly talked about. Like we're talking on a podcast right now, I think really for the past 5 to 10 years, really casually and comfortably. Whereas before it was always in books, or we would hear it in like woman to woman talks. And now I hear more and more women talking about it. And it makes me really happy, because it's a great way to actually just measure how your pH is, and just get in touch with your body by seeing, your, like you said, with UTIs, with cystitis, also monitoring your sugar intake can help you kind of understand with your candida. So, this is one of the many tools that you can use to reconnect with your body.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy you tied it into women's health, actually, to summarize.
Yeah. And there's, if you're someone who's into the keto diet, it'll tell you like what your ketones are. So you can look at that, which is really cool. Like if you're trying to get into ketosis. And then the oxidative stress piece is also really cool as well, because you don't. What actually are you looking at free radicals? Sorry, I'm like staring at my data here.
No problem.
What are you measuring in that for that one?
So we're looking at MMA. So basically what we're trying to do is, it's great technology.
Methylmalonic acid?
Yes.
Which is a B12 breakdown.
Exactly. So we're looking at basically how our body is functioning under inflammation, and kind of using it to understand how our users are responding to it. So, I mean, I listened to your podcast and some of your YouTube videos, and you spoke a lot about, stress and inflammation. I think you're like the expert about that in the field.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think for me, that was a really, really cool parameter to check out, because I've always been super trying to decrease my stress levels. For example, I used to be an athlete, and I transitioned from running to like walking / slow running to kind of balance my adrenals, or not running at all to boost my, female hormones.
I'm with you on that. I'm a previous runner too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to run marathons and do all that. And then
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't run anymore. It's just not, my body doesn't like it.
I think our bodies, like when I remember when I was just reading a lot about and also traveling and seeing a lot of nomadic cultures, I realized that and animals in general don't run for long amounts of time. They sprint a little bit for prey or to get somewhere or emergencies. Mm-hmm. And it does signal a state of alarm.
Yeah. But, which is not a problem, right? Like it's okay. Like a short sprint, like you're saying. And I think there's a lot of interesting research coming out about exercise showing that like it's better for you to do like short bursts of intensity and then rest, because our bodies were designed for like 10% of the time to be in that fight flight, and the rest of the time we want to be calm. But if you're like I used to do, if I would go running for 2 hours on a Sunday, like that was a little too long. That was too much time being in fight flight when the rest of my life was stressful too, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really great topic you're talking about, because I just think that especially it's really encouraged in the Western, or I would say capitalist-based society. And then when I was visiting other parts of the world, I realized that so little of percentage of people's days were occupied by stress. Whereas in America, I felt like we were constantly, I honestly didn't know how to function if I wasn't stressing myself out on purpose or being stressed.
Where are you from?
So I grew up between different countries, but I mainly grew up in New York City. My mother is American and my father's Turkish. I'm mixed.
Oh, Turkish. Okay.
I lived in America, in New York City, until I was in my 30s. And I think that lifestyle really made me get in that like go mentality, very competitive. And I didn't realize it until I left. And then I went to other parts of the world, and I would be sitting there and I'm like, how are people, when I was working in different firms in different countries and like Europe, and I'm like, how are people so relaxed? Lunch hours are an hour and a half. People are actually sitting down, taking their lunch. And it was hard for me mentally to kind of slow down.
I know.
Same thing with exercise. Like when you mentioned with running, I realized that a lot of people were not running as much as they were in New York City. People were going for long walks. Like a lot of my friends who are French.
They go for like a leisurely stroll after a meal.
Yeah.
Which is so enjoyable.
Yeah. There's even a term for it called flemme, where you just kind of walk with no reason.
Yeah.
Just for the pleasure of walking. And that was just kind of like eye-opening for me. So I think tapping into our oxidative stress or inflammation is a
good way to know, like, hey, am I overdoing it? I'm actually curious. Yeah. I'm curious to use this. I haven't been exercising much lately, and I'm wondering if I was actually pretty surprised. I'm like, wow, my levels look really good. I'm curious to see what it looks like on a day after doing like a hot yoga class or something where I've sweat a lot. Curious to see what the hydration. I think this could be a really great tool to see, like, are you overtraining or not? Because do you know, have you guys seen data if people are overtraining, will their oxidative stress numbers go up quickly?
Yeah. So I honestly, not to lie, I haven't checked that out, but with myself, I have. Yeah. Because I also love hot yoga. I love saunas. I really believe in the power of sweat and like,
it's amazing.
It's like for me also mentally cleansing, and I love anything with water. I was an ex-swimmer. I saw in myself that the days that I would go to the sauna and I would do like 20 minutes of sauna, a cold shower, steam room, I saw that even though I was hydrating quite a bit, like I was drinking 16 ounces, my water I would be dehydrated. And I would realize that I would actually have to add salt to my water.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I drank coffee and went to HIIT workouts, which is usually not something because I'm like a yogi, etc., my inflammation was definitely, my oxidative stress was definitely up. Yeah.
Oh, so that 100%.
Oxidative stress is actually really sensitive. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but also to lack of sleep. My apologies. Yeah.
Oh, what a cool marker just to be able to kind of gauge. And this is, I feel like it's so cool that we live in this age where we have so many different ways we can kind of see what's going on. Like you can wear a glucose monitor that tells you what your glucose is doing. And I've got this test available. You can see all these. So you can like see in real time how your body's responding to things, which is amazing. And I love that your tagline is your body's voice. Like, I always say that like our body's always trying to talk to us through its symptoms.
It is.
And sometimes we don't know how to understand it, but this gives us this is almost like a translator, this test. Seems like it's a cool translator.
I think it's like, when you have a loving friend, or if any of our listeners were lucky enough to have a loving mother, they're always like, honey, I think you need to kind of slow it down, or I think you should eat some more, fruit, or I think you should drink some more water. It's kind of like that. And I think we all need some kind of support system.
Yeah.
So I believe, in our society where like we're both talking about how it's getting incredibly competitive and stressful, I think having these biohacking devices can really help. I myself was very resistant to using them just because I've been a very natural based person. But then once I realized how much they're necessary in this modern world, I became addicted to them all. So I love using Vivo because I was previously drinking gallons and gallons of water and feeling dehydrated. And then once I kind of learned about sodium, which is another really cool parameter, it really opened my eyes. I mean, sodium's always been like kind of...
People are scared of it, but it's so important for hydration. It's so it's like, one of the things I put people on sodium all the time, or on high sodium electrolytes, because I feel like my patients with adrenal fatigue, they're really dehydrated because they don't have enough sodium. Your adrenals burn through sodium like crazy to make cortisol and norepinephrine. And so if you're producing a bunch of those hormones, sodium levels are going to tend to decline. And I mean, one of the signs that I ask, I'm like, hey, do you crave anything? And people are like, oh my God, I crave so much salt, but I don't eat it because you're not supposed to. I'm like, no, you need to eat salt.
I know. It's like fat from the 90s. It's like bad.
Yeah. People are like, salt, it's going to make my blood pressure go up and it's going to make me puffy. Yeah. Now there are certain types of sodium, like monosodium glutamate, like there's certain sodium forms that are in processed stuff. That's what's making you feel bloated and puffy. It's not the actual, like the mineral element sodium. That usually makes people feel good. We're a big fan of those LMNT electrolytes, which are really high in sodium.
Yes.
And I mean, they taste very salty, but if you mix them with water, they're great for hydration. Or just adding sea salt to your food, or you can make like an adrenal cocktail. You add a little sea salt in there. So, but what a valuable
delicious
tool to be able to be like, okay, am I getting enough sodium or am I not? Like to be able to test that.
I think that's great because for me, I was always buying, rock crystal and then grinding it myself. And then I was realizing that from that natural salt, I had to put quite a bit on my food, and I was shocked. But here, let me just disclaimer for all listeners. I'm someone who works out every day. I'm also primarily plant-based. I drink a lot of water. So my body really
needs salt.
Very, very well.
Yes.
It needs salt.
Yes.
Whereas, the average American eats out 5.9 times a week. And most times that we do eat out, a lot of the food does have a lot of salt
in it,
sugar and fat, just to enhance taste and also to work as a natural preservative. So for me, I needed to add salt. And then when I was eating out, and of course they were using iodized or non-iodized bleached fine salt, granulated salt, my sodium levels spiked up. And no matter how much water I was drinking, I felt really bloated.
Oh, interesting.
So I was realizing that for me, it was the salinity test really helped me understand also that it was actually the type of salt I was using.
Eating. Yeah.
So I mean, like, I really want to try your adrenal cocktail, by the way. That sounds delicious.
There's tons of great recipes. I actually don't have one that, like, I just find there's a few online that are really good.
There's great. Yeah.
I think it's like,
okay, maybe we can make one together.
Yeah,
then I'll work on that tonight.
We'll work on that. That'll be fun. Well, then we could test it out. We could drink it and then test with the Vivu
Salty Mary.
See what happens. So I have a couple questions about, because I know you guys just sent me these test strips. Can people just order them directly? I didn't even look at, can you order them directly from the website? Do they have to be through a doctor?
Yeah. So you can order these products directly through our website. Our website, for everyone who's listening, it's www.vivoo.io. So it's vivo.io. And we also have a really cool social media. You can look us up at social media. You'll see tons of amazing reels. Our social media is at Vivo App. So VIVOOAPE. Sorry, APP.
We'll put this in the show notes too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And so today, for all our listeners, because you do focus so much on adrenal health, stress, and natural health management, we're offering your listeners a 30% off discount code.
Great.
And we're going to be naming it after you, the famous Dr. Erin. So the code will be Erin30. So ERIN30 is going to allow them to get 30% off at checkout, which is a very, very generous offer.
Yeah, that's great. What do they cost? What's the cost of these tests?
Sure. So there's different options.
Okay.
Right now we offer 3 different options. We offer a 1 box, a 1 month, or 3 months. And if you enroll, it usually is at a lower
cheaper
cost.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now a box is costing, I believe, $40 from
and
what
how
I
many are in a
last checked.
box?
And in the box, there are, let me get back to you on that from my notes.
Is that what you guys sent me? This little box?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, that box is a sample. So yeah, that's a small
so I got
one.
5. And you're recommending that people do this every day, right? Or that you would do it every day for a little while just to gain some knowledge?
Yeah, that's why it's good you asked how many are in a box. So I think for us right now, what we recommend is it depends on your lifestyle. So I work with a lot of professional athletes. For them, it's extremely important that they measure their micronutrients and macronutrients every day. But then some, individuals might realize that they can measure themselves every few days and it's sufficient. So it really does depend. And just to clarify for our listeners, in the one-time purchase with 4 Vivo tests inside, it is $40. So it's, roughly around $10 a test. But if you are using Erin's code, you're going to get it for $7 a test, which is a, really great deal.
It's an awesome discount.
And if there's an option also to enroll in a 12-month subscription where you get 48 tests, and then that's only $20 a month. That's, the option that I found the most.
We recommend if you're wanting to that's cool.
Yeah. If you really want to change your lifestyle and all of a sudden understand what is happening to your body by your daily choices. So for instance, just getting back to your question, how often to test, it can be that an individual is finding that they are really, it's really important that they measure their kidney health, So they're looking at so we call that protein, but it's really actually measuring your kidney health. And we don't really want to see protein in the urine, although protein is a very popular word. And we always see something, we're like, oh my God, this says protein. I have to buy it,
Yeah, no, if there's protein in your urine, that means your kidneys they're leaking protein, which is not a great.
Exactly. So that's a little bit why sometimes urine tests can be a little bit, a different approach. So the protein parameter on Vivo actually can show your kidney health. So just like you said, Dr. Erin, we don't want to see protein in the urine because it's showing the kidneys are leaking it. So that measure is really useful. So if someone's a renal patient, they will be using our Vivo tests every day, especially for our elderly population. And that's why it's so awesome that you can use it in the comfort of our own home because post-COVID and also just with a lot of at-home care, measuring every day, not having to go to an office to do a blood test, etc. Yeah, for a lab, it's been really practical. If you're someone who's trying to understand how they can lower their stress levels, their cortisone, or their inflammation, that can be really beneficial too, to do it more frequently. And then once you've kind of fine-tuned your diet, you can maintain it. I use it a lot when I travel because I didn't realize the impact that travel was having on my health, and I travel quite frequently. So when I'm traveling, I use it, for example, every day. And then when I'm having my normal lifestyle routine, I use it every other day. It really depends on how much you are interested in investing in your own health.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine it would be really helpful to do something like this for a couple of months so you could learn, hey, what does my body like or what does my body not like? I have a lot of patients that will use the CGM for a month or two so they can just gather data. Does my body blood sugar go up when I eat this, or does it stay normal when I eat this? And then you can kind of keep tabs on okay, I do really well if I drink this much water and I take 1 magnesium or I take 1. So it's just a good way to gather information about your body.
Yeah. I think that's why we say listen to your body's voice, just connecting to your body. So
it's super cool. Well, thank you so much for this chat. This has been awesome, really eye-opening. We'll put all the notes in the show we'll put all the links and everything in the show notes, and then we'll put the code there. So, so if you guys are listening and you want to try it out, go order it. And thanks, Melissa. This was really awesome.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Erin. This was an amazing opportunity to speak with you. And thank you for, increasing awareness about stress management. Your podcasts are fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. See you next week.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to connect with me on social media and leave a rating and/or a review. This helps grow the show so more people have access to this knowledge that leads to empowered healing. Love and light, and see you next week.